Hello everyone, yes it is Mix Wednesdays and yes we are back again. And what are we going to be speaking about this week? We are going to be speaking all about MIXBUS enhancers. Do they actually work? So, as a little disclaimer, right, just before you want to hit that dislike button, remember if you do hit that dislike button, remember to hit it twice, okay? A little disclaimer, okay? These MIXBUS enhancers, these MIXBUS finishers, whatever you want to call them, are only as good as what you feed into them, okay? So, again, I don't want to get into discussions and arguments about the things that we already know. We should be at a point on this channel where we don't have to speak all about the obvious truth that yes, you still require optimum high quality recordings, okay? Again, you still need to know how to mix and you still need to build a good mix, okay? These plugins, this whole discussion and this topic isn't about using plugins, okay, to make you a better mixer. This discussion is all about certain plugins and certain tools that you can use to already enhance what you've already got. So quick disclaimer, right? Before you want to comment and dislike, just remember guys, just remember these plugins are only as good as what you feed into them, okay? If you put crap into it, right, all it's going to do is sculpt and give a little bit of a shine to that crap, but it's still crap, okay? Just remember that, right? Just remember that. So let's get on to the good stuff. So the reason I've kind of done this video is because recently the plugins that have been coming out, the plugins I've been doing, have kind of been plugins that I've now included in my MIXBUS. So the BETTERMAKER is on every one of my mixes now, and the Diamond Transient is now on every one of my mixes. And also been trying out the Celestial because I've been noticing that the Ssl Fusion and the hardware and Acustica Audio Celestial as their kind of analog emulation has been really popular. I've seen David Nausey and MIXBUS TV and lots of other guys using the Ssl Fusion, especially on Instagram. I'm seeing loads of clips of it. So I thought I would add that in as well, and I quite like what it does. Now I released my first single, this one here, that done pretty terrible, whatever, it was my first single. I released that probably, was it back in July, I think? July, August time, I think. I can't really remember now. But I was never really truly 100% happy with it, and I mixed it to the best that I could do, right? I fine tweaked it. I actually think I over tweaked and over tuned this thing. Find little fader adjustments, and I'll just change I'll just add a little bit more 10k in the snare. I'll just bring down the bass a little bit, add in a little bit low end here, just change the reverb a little bit, and all these fine tweaks. You get to a point where you, okay, there's an undo button, but you get to a point sometimes where you over tweak it so much that you forget where you were, where you actually had it, where you were pretty happy with it. So instead of kind of making fine little tweaks that in the end not many people are going to hear, right? The listener isn't going to hear a half a dB change in the bass, right? They aren't going to hear half a dB increment of 10k in the snare. They're not going to hear it, okay? What you need to think about is broad strokes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I've used these three, and with the BETTERMAKER I'm going to stick it in a plugin doctor and I'm going to show you actually the broad strokes that it does. All I'm kind of really trying to explain is how you can use MIXBUS tools and how broad these things are, so you understand that it's not fine tweaking that you're doing with these plugins. You're making broad adjustments, and sometimes that's what you need to completely make your mix better, because fine tweaks all are fine tweaks. Sometimes to make a mix better you need to be drastic and you need to be quite harsh and quite brash. So let's get into it and let's see first what the BETTERMAKER does in the setting that I have. So for this, what I've done is I've picked 100 Hz in the Pultec style EQ, okay? Then what I've done is I've boosted a bit of 100, and then I've attenuated a bit of 100. So it's kind of like a close to a level pegging. And then I've got the 20k range, and then again I'm boosting that, and then I'm attenuating a little bit as well. So again, the boost and attenuates are quite close together, but again I'm using my ears and I just quite like what it does. Then I've got the 8K boost. I just love on this plugin. I just adore what this does in conjunction with the Pultec EQ. So with this, I've then got I've got quite a broad EQ boost, okay, at 8K. I'm pretty sure it's like 2.5 dB or something like that. And then I've got the high pass filter in, again, just tightening that low end at 30 Hz, okay? So let's hear what the BETTERMAKER does just on its own to the original mix that I'd released a couple of months ago. So, a massive difference, and it does sound better. There is no getting around, the clarity is there, and everything just sounds better. It sounds more like a record. Everything's cleaned up, okay? Now, a lot of you guys might say, well, that's because you mixed it terrible the first time. I mixed it the way I mixed it, okay? And the problem is, when you're in that place and you mix, and I had a reference. Remember, I was trying to kind of go for like a Jet, are you going to be my girl, Dave Sardy vibe, so I kind of mixed it that way, referenced it, A-B'd it quite a lot, and I was in that place where I mixed it that way, and I was stuck in that place. And again, it was just fine tweaks. You know what it's like, you get to a point where you have to say I'm done, because I was making fine tweaks, not these big broad adjustments. So what's actually going on behind the hood of the BETTERMAKER? Now, I stuck it into Plugin Doctor with those settings, okay? So I'm going to smooth a little bit just so you can see. So this here is the Plugin Doctor analysis of the linear curve. This is basically what the BETTERMAKER in this setting is doing to the signal. So what I didn't tell you before is I also brought in the output as well, just so the original and the BETTERMAKER, okay, they matched integral LUFS, and I wasn't being clouded by loudness, so they're both the exact same level. So what you can actually see in terms of the curve is that it's a very steep high pass filter. It's very steep, okay? So it's taken out a lot of rumble, and then because I've obviously brought the output down, what it actually does is it's actually just giving you a slight bass bump, okay? Obviously, if you were to like not change the output, then it would be a really big bass bump. But obviously, because I've brought the output down, what you can see is it's just a little bit of a bass bump, just a little bit. It's quite marginal. You'd probably be talking like 0.2 dB of a broad bass boost. But what I love about what it does to the curve. Now just look at that big kind of dip in the mid-range, and again it starts maybe about 200 Hertz all the way maybe to like up to maybe close to maybe like 2.5K. Again, probably its biggest dip, it's probably about 1K. So the lows aren't really being added to that much, but what you are doing is you're taking out the mid-range, which again could be quite like the mud in the mix, which I can hear. So what you can see is, because it's like a bit of a smiley curve, what it's doing is by taking out the mid-range, you are actually enhancing the bass, you then are enhancing the high end. And then what you can see is that the high end is boosted way more than the low end, okay? So again, probably at its highest peak, you're probably talking maybe 2.3 dB, but again, it's big broad strokes. So again, you've got like your low end come in, then a big dip in the mid-range, then a big high boost. And then the last thing you can notice is that what it does is it naturally brings down those highs. Again, it just kind of has a bit of a steep little curve at the very end. So again, you can see it's like that big bell curve that's coming around, okay? But then around, say, from 15 to 20K, that last kind of 5K that at your high end, it's just taking that down maybe about 2 dB, just shaving off that top end. So you have lows, like a dip in the mid-range, and then kind of boosting your high mid-range from say 2.5K, say maybe all the way up to say 12K. And again, it's that big bell, okay? And it's very drastic. But I find it really interesting that that's what that was doing. And that's the thing, is sometimes it's best not to see what the plugin's doing. Because again, if I was in a digital EQ, I wouldn't have made those moves. I'd be like, that's a big bass hump. Oh, that's a big treble hump. Wow, taking a lot of mid-range out there. Again, that's why it's better to have a faceplate that basically is very, very simple, and you use your ears with these things, okay? You're not seeing how the sound's being implemented. So there is a massive change in the sound. Again, big brush stroke. So there's one EQ move, okay? So what about if we were to then take what I've got in the BETTERMAKER, then add in something more? Can I take what I've got in the BETTERMAKER and make that even better? So then this brings me on to the Celestial. Right, okay, so in terms of the Celestial, this is how I've got the Celestial set up. So you've got your drive section, and you've got like almost like a harmonic section in this. So you can add in more harmonics and kind of more saturation. You've then got what they call an infrared equalizer, which is basically just a low shelf and a high shelf. So what I'm doing with that is I'm boosting a low shelf at 60, then I'm boosting a high shelf at 18K. Then again, I've got another high pass and low pass. So I'm doing a high pass filter at 30, again, just seeing if I can just sculpt that even more, just to see what that high pass is doing. There are different slopes involved in different EQs. And then I've got the 22K low pass in as well. Now you'll be quite surprised what this does when I'm going to plug in Doctor, because this 22K low pass is a little bit more steep than what I was expecting. Then you have a dynamic section, which is basically a compressor. So again, you've basically just got fast, slow, and again you've got your threshold, and it's just really, really, really simple. Okay, so for this one, what I did was I didn't want to compress any of the lows, and I'm not wanting to kind of ruin that kind of nice punch that I've got in the low end, but again, I maybe just want to just tighten everything up overall, just kind of squeeze everything what I've got just a little bit tighter. So again, I've got the sidechain in at 250, so I'm not compressing anything under 250 hertz, and it's probably maybe doing, I think it was like half a dB. I'm pretty sure it's like not even doing a dB. I think it's like half a dB compression, so it is very, 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 very subtle. And then lastly, you have your spread, which again, you've got mono, stereo, think of it that way, or mid and side, whatever way you want to see it, okay? So basically it's just a spread knob that you've got. You can make it more mono, or again, you can make it more stereo. And again, it's as simple as that. And again, you have your input as well, and there's a pre on there. So again, you can add more harmonics in there by utilizing the pre, and then just like hitting that input knob a little bit harder. So first off, before we go into plugin Doctor, let's have a listen at what the Ssl Fusion in my settings does to the sound that I've already managed to kind of shape further using the BETTERMAKER. So what you can hear there in terms of the Ssl Fusion, Celestial, whatever you want to call it, what that's doing there is it's basically just kind of giving you an overall, that kind of low shelf that I've got at 60 is basically just kind of lifting the low end, and it's just kind of giving you a lot more weight. And here's what I find interesting. I'm giving it an 18K shelf, okay, but then I've got like a 22K low pass in. So what I'm actually feel like I'm doing is I've got that nice low end. I like what the lows are doing, but I kind of feel that I'm losing a lot of the top end. So I was kind of in two minds. I was like either the high pass filter is too steep, or the kind of shelving in the EQ section of the top end 18K just is pretty subtle. But overall, again, I do like and I do prefer the Ssl Fusion. I like the way it's adding. So then with the dynamic transient on top of that, I'm going to want to bring the high end in, which if you've watched the videos, there's 3 parts on it. As the expander, the Look a Pretty Lacy setting, you can actually, it does add quite a lot of top end in, so this does work well in conjunction. But if I wasn't using the transient, I probably wouldn't use that high pass filter, and here's why. So let's have a look at what, but under the hood, the Celestial is doing. And I'll just kind of go over very quickly what each stage is doing and why this would actually be very, very hard to try and recreate. In terms of the BETTERMAKER is really only a linear EQ, okay? There is no harmonics in there, there's no dynamics in there. It is basically just an algorithmic plugin that shapes the waveform a certain way. So let me get into detail about what the Celestial's doing. So as you can see, okay, we'll add in some harmonics, okay? So look at the start of the note, look at the end of the note, look at that tail of the high end, that low pass kind of filter that's added in there. And then all the texture is doing is just basically raising the volume. That's kind of really all that's doing. Okay, now let's have a look at the harmonics that it's actually adding. Okay, look at that, look at all that harmonic information. Now let's take that away and look at that, no harmonics whatsoever. So that actually is doing something, it is genuinely doing something, okay? So from there, okay, we're going to have a look at the EQ section. Now look at that, look at the very end of the spectrum, okay? Look at what this kind of, the low pass filter changes just while having the EQ engaged. Look how steep that is, look, it's just trimming, look at that, it's very steep, just trimming off that high end. So let's add in the low end and let's kind of see what we're looking at here. So look how broad that, look how broad that low end is. Very, very broad, okay, very broad. And then let's add in some high end, and again, look, see how it kind of just stops and then just kind of really just kind of falls off like the edge of a cliff here. So EQ off, EQ on, which then creates a smiley face, which again, you've got that kind of dip in the mids, again, just like in the BETTERMAKER, okay? So again, big broad movements, again, really big smiley face going on here. And then we're looking at the high pass filter, okay? So look at the difference of what the high pass filter does. This is with it on, okay? This is crazy. Look at that. It basically just normalizes and basically takes it and basically changes it to like a normal curve, really, okay? So what you could then kind of see from there is that, again, the lows are it's quite a big low boost, and then the highs, again, look at that steep roll off the high pass filter, and that's with the EQ off, okay? But look at that big roll off the high pass filter's doing. And again, look at the level difference when you don't have the harmonics in. Then you add the EQ back in, and there's your smiley face, more lows, and again, just a little bit of highs, just a little, which is probably why you couldn't really hear the highs that much. So then you've got your stereo spread, okay? Now this is interesting. Look at the high end, right? So that's on, right? Look at the boost in high end there. Look at the high end. That high shelf just gets boosted, that bell just gets boosted a little bit, which is interesting. And then when you add more to the sides, again, the level comes right down, which I find really interesting. I just find it interesting why the high end would increase with just having it on without any mids or sides enhanced. And then look, that's it with the pre absolutely cranked, right? Look at that. How are you going to emulate that in a plugin? You're not going to be able to do that with a standard plugin. And again, it's crazy how the waveform changes with the input and the extra harmonics added. And I don't know if that's aliasing. I'm still trying to get my head around aliasing, because you're really hitting it hard. I don't know if that's maybe the frequencies kind of bouncing back. Okay, so that's it with nothing in. Okay. And then what I want to show you is just look at how that low end is just being shaped there. See how it's like it's not smooth, got a little bit of a dip, and then you've got a bit of a bigger dip, and then it kind of smooths out. So the top end's really smooth, but the input of the pre, the more you kind of hit it, again, just at like a plus 6 dB, again, see how it dips certain bits of the low end, and that's very, very, very difficult to try and replicate. So that's what's going on behind the hood, and that's what's giving you that sound. So as you can see, that big steep roll off is doing a lot. So if I wasn't to have that low pass filter at 22k engaged, as you've seen by that big kind of hump in the highs, I would actually have more high end information. So in essence, really, when you're using the high band and the low pass filter in conjunction, basically what the low pass filter is doing, it's smoothing out all of that top end that you're adding in. Without it, it would be quite, so again, you can see it's quite a big kind of upcline, and then bang, it's like this natural low pass filter. I don't know if that's to do with aliasing. Again, woof, it's very, very steep. But then if you have the low pass filter in, it just kind of really smooths out that top end. So it's very, very similar to what the BETTERMAKER's doing. It's just a different smiley face. But again, dip in the middle, boost in the bass, boosting the highs, okay? So again, it is very similar in what it's doing. And then you can kind of say, well, could you not really kind of get the same result out of the BETTERMAKER? That's the thing you've got to ask yourself. But again, it's just nice to kind of go, I like that, okay, I like that, I like that, I like that. Let's see if we can do another broad boost. And again, it's all these big broad brush strokes, okay? So I liked what that was doing there. Now, let's see the diamond transient, okay? Let's see if I can make it more 3D, if I can add that top end that I've lost from the low pass filter, okay, in the Celestial. So I like the color, the low end weight. Can I basically take everything that I've got, make it more 3D, a little bit more punchy, okay, and then basically just bring it to life a little bit more. Let's see the difference of what the diamond transient in conjunction. Again, I've got the LP3X in expander, and I've also got the DIAMOND in as well, so the dynamic low filter EQ section as well. So in terms of the way I've got the dynamic transient set up, is basically the look of Pretty Lacy setting. I kind of fine-tuned it and mucked about with it, but I kind of felt it was kind of making it worse. I just felt that the look of Pretty Lacy kind of setup just worked. All I did was I just shaved the top end just a little bit. I just thought the top end was a little bit too bright, a little bit too much. So I just kind of turned down the level and trimmed it just a little bit, and I felt it really worked. So that's how the LP3X, the expander, is set up, and I'm kind of using it more as an expander. I've got the transition up a little bit more than normal as well. So I'm expanding, and then what I'm doing is I'm then basically wanting to tighten up that low end that I've kind of already enhanced with Celestial. So let's have a look at what I'm doing with the Ddmf. Right, so in terms of using this on a MIXBUS, what I've basically done is I've got the high pass filter section set to around 30 Hz. Again, it's the exact same. It probably isn't doing anything. And again, I'm changing the slope a little bit as well. I'm utilising everything. I've got the pre in as well. So again, I'm just adding another high pass filter and just seeing what that sounds like. In terms of the low band, I'm adding in quite a bit of 50, and I'm cranking 50 quite a lot. So I've got 50, and I'm just kind of bringing that out even more. Then I've got the dynamic mode on, so it's turning it into a dynamic section. Ratio's at 2:1. I'm expanding it a lot, and again, I'm using the amount knob as well. So again, I'm basically expanding that low end and making it bigger. So I'm expanding, then I'm using the dynamic EQ just to tighten everything up and make it a little bit more rhythmic. Fast attack, fast release, again, very similar to what I did in the Celestial. Again, all kind of fast settings, and from that, I just kind of felt that in conjunction with the LP3X, okay, I felt that I was getting more overall expansion and more transients coming out, more dynamics. I felt that it was like the snare was punchier, the kick was punchier, everything was coming through, just at the low end needed a little bit of a boost, which is what the Ddmf does. So I've got that low end, so I'm thinking about what I'm putting into it, okay, so I'm wanting more high end, which is what the expander does, then I'm giving it more low end as well. And in my opinion, I feel that it's basically taken what I've done and it enhanced it to make it more 3D. Everything's more 3D and it sounds more like a record to me. Everything's kind of just coming out of you a little bit more, and it's more dynamic and it's more clean, and again, it's the exact same level. So I've kept the level the same, but I've got more punch and I've got more dynamics and it's more 3D. So this is what it sounds like. So original, the BETTERMAKER had the Fusion with the dynamic transient in.
To make me
So hopefully you could hear that difference. I think it's crazy how much I hate the original mix, and it's really hard because I sit there and I go, why did I release that? I just kind of feel like taking it like completely off all the streaming platforms and re-releasing it again. But these are the things that you need to learn, okay? Because now again, a lot of people kind of find, I love what I've got. And if you like what you've got, then don't use a MIXBUS enhancer. Don't use it. If you like what you've got, then fine. But to me, I always like the option of being able to go, stick it in, bypass, unbypass. Does it sound better? It sounds better. Okay, let's use it, right? Use my ears. Now, very interesting to me, how 3D the dynamic transient was. I think overall, the three of them together at each stage just brings out the track even more. And again, it's what I've input into it first. It's taken what I've already had and just enhanced it. That's sometimes what you need, is just to be really brash and really harsh with it. Now, here's the thing, right? I'm going to be a little bit tricky here now, but let's just think of the BETTERMAKER, these algorithmic EQs, okay? Now, you would say, I need a BETTERMAKER, okay? I need a BETTERMAKER to get that sound. And if they don't have any harmonics in, then it's just a linear EQ. So what you can do is you can take that linear EQ and basically take it into something like Waves F6 or FabFilter and try and recreate that curve. Now, this only works if you kind of mix in to your plugins. So again, if you like your plugins to be set a certain way and then you mix into that, then if there is no harmonics in, there's no dynamics involved, then you can recreate it with a kind of standard digital EQ. Now, this is something that I tested out with the BETTERMAKER because I love the BETTERMAKER. So what I did was I took the curve of the BETTERMAKER and I basically stuck it in. Now, I could have stuck it in a plugin doctor and done it that way, but I just kind of wanted to see for myself if I was able to do it kind of just by looking at it, looking at the dB increments and stuff, and just kind of looking and seeing if I can get the same kind of shape of waveform. We're going to have a comparison of the original, okay, with the BETTERMAKER and the F6 that's basically copying the waveform, okay, of the BETTERMAKER. Now let's see how close I was able to get just by having a look at the waveform. Now that's pretty scary. That's pretty scary. You can do it, and I have heard people doing it. It was very, very close, and I think if I did stick it in the plugin doctor and got it exact, it would be almost indistinguishable. There are slight differences. I do kind of still feel that the BETTERMAKER still has a little bit more energy in it, but again, that could just be that I've not got the curve exactly the way it needs to be. I might just say it's probably not absolutely spot on. There might be slight details that I'm missing, but I was very, very, very close. What I'm going to say is that, see the BETTERMAKER, right? To do what the BETTERMAKER does, you would need 4 or 5 hands, right? You can get the same sound as the BETTERMAKER, but you cannot create the same sound as of the BETTERMAKER without the algorithm, okay? That's what that is. Again, I'm telling you, you would need 4 or 5 hands to be able, and again, because of the way it works, it could be changing the Q and also bringing down a band and then changing the Q of something else. And again, it's just, if you watch it, it just moves. It's quite cool watching how the waveform just kind of transforms itself, and it's something that you're not going to be able to do. You're not going to be able to, even if you had 4 or 5 hands and you had all the knobs in the world, you would struggle to be able to do it. And it's not creative. That's what I love about these plugins, is that they're very creative, right? The BETTERMAKER is really simple: boost, attenuate, boost, attenuate, boost, boost, right? You just kind of go into it and you're like, start turning knobs and using your ears, that sounds better. I quite like that, I quite like that. You're not focusing on what's happening underneath the hood. So kind of to sum up, I would say that MIXBUS enhancers, they do exist. It's all about what you put into them, but you can polish what you've already got and make stuff better. If you're buying hardware, you're getting the harmonics in there, which is what the BETTERMAKER doesn't have. Again, there's colour involved. The transformers, whatever's the circuitry, whatever in there is going to colour that sound. With digital, it's digital, right? You're buying into the algorithm and how it shapes the waveform. So what I did find is that with a lot of these MIXBUS enhancers, basically what they're doing is they're just creating smiley faces. You're enhancing your lows, it's always dipping a big bit of mid-range out and then boosting the highs again. And that's kind of maybe that's just me, again, it's subjective, that's maybe just the sound that I like. I just maybe like to have that mid-range taken out. A lot of you guys might think, no, it kind of maybe sounds a bit empty with it being that way, and that's the beauty of audio engineering, right? It's completely subjective. So it's been a very kind of and detailed video, and I kind of want to do more shootouts like this. I'm thinking about maybe doing EQ matching next, and maybe picking like a few plugins that I think might be pretty simple, that actually if you set it up a certain way and you know the fixed Q and it doesn't really do what, like say, the BETTERMAKER does, where it affects other kind of parts of the frequency spectrum, then you can actually properly match EQs if they don't have any harmonics. That's kind of stuff I'm getting into, and I've just kind of like watched the videos all about aliasing, and I'm like, oh my god, like aliasing is a rabbit hole in itself. There's lots of things I'm thinking about just now, how to give you guys more content, but I did quite enjoy this and I found it quite interesting. So MIXBUS enhancers, finishers, do they exist? Yes, they do exist. You can make your sound better. But really, in the end, what did I find? If you don't want a certain product, you just kind of really want to make your mix kind of overall sound better, a smiley works quite well. It might not work for everybody, but for me it works quite well. Smiley, bit of dip in the mid-range, bit of big boost in the lows, boost in the highs, and that's kind of what works. Can you get that from other plugins? Yeah, you can. But there are plugins that offer harmonics, and again, harmonic behaviour, like the Celestial, like the Dynamic Transient. So yeah, try stuff out and experiment. Right? That's what I'd like to finish this video on. Getting high quality recordings and learning how to mix first is the most important thing. But yes, experiment with stuff, and just remember, right, small tweaks, fine tweaks, they're inaudible, right? Sometimes you just need a big broad boost or a big brush stroke, as I like to call it, to just take your mix to the next level. Hopefully that's been good for you guys. Remember, like and subscribe. Hopefully I'll get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I've put a thanks to everybody video for getting me over 800 subscribers, so again I suggest you watch that, because it's just me again thanking you for all the support you've given me over the past 7 months. So hope you liked this video, like and subscribe, and I will see you again on Mixing with